Big Three NBA podcast is powered by PrizePicks.
Hello, folks. Welcome to another edition of the Big Three NBA podcast. I am your host, Sherrod Blakely, and I'm joined today by a familiar face of the family, Josue Pavon. What's going on, Josue?
Nothing much, Rod. How are you, man? Good to be on.
Good, man. Yeah, you are used to dealing with teams that are near the top of the standings, having been in Boston the last few years. But now, Josue, as most of you know by now, has taken he's gone west. He's taken his talents to the Midwest, to be more specific.
Really did.
Oklahoma City Thunder. For those who don't know, Josue, let them know a little bit about just what you're up to now.
So I'm covering the Thunder. My first year covering the Thunder out here in OKC. I have Clutch Points as an editor as well. And it's been good, man. It's been quite the adjustment out here, for sure. But, yeah, that's what I'm up to this year, man. Just a new chapter in my career. And covering this Thunder team that's been sitting on top of the Western Conference all year long. But as you know, Sherrod, playoffs is a whole nother ball game, man. So we'll see what this team looks like in the postseason. That's what everyone's waiting for. Same thing in Boston, same thing out here, especially with these eager Thunder fans who've been waiting for them to make that leap this year. And we'll see how they can go.
Oh, for sure. I mean, there's no doubt that, they are thirsty for a chip. This is the same franchise that at one time had James Harden, Kevin Durant, and Russell Westbrook.
Three MVPs, Sherrod. Three.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's another. I don't know if there's another team in the league now that at some point had a roster of 3 league MVPs. But that's neither here nor there. OKC they're like la. We don't want to hear about that.
They don't want to hear about that. Yeah, they love Russ though. They love Russ. Russ is like the one that got away. They're welcome to a reunion at some point with Russell Westbrook. But outside of that, they don't like to talk about that. They're like we're looking ahead. We don't want to talk about the past.
Absolutely. And the Celtics here, I mean, they're in similar from the standpoint of they too are trying to look ahead. And when you look at this Celtics team, you look at their future, you look at just them continuing to be one of the top teams, and not just the Eastern Conference, but the NBA. You got to start with Jayson Tatum. And here's the thing about Jayson Tatum, and I've had conversations with a few different folks about this, and an interesting point has been raised. When you look at what Tatum does statistically, he's giving you 27 points, about 9 boards, 5-6 dimes a game. His team has been top 5 record-wise in the NBA pretty much all season long. He's coming off winning a championship, and he's 26. And yet when you talk about like face of the league, the guys that the league in theory should be building around, you don't really hear his name come up as often as you would think his resume would tell you it should. What's your take on Jayson Tatum's just the way that he is seen from the league's perspective? Because the fans, they seem to be all in on JT. I mean, his jersey, I think sales were like number 3 in the league this year. And obviously, with the shoes and all the other stuff, people know who he is. But it seems like there seems to be like a gap or disconnect between what he's doing and the league's promotion of what he's doing as like that guy.
Yeah, for sure, Sherrod. I just feel like a lot of it has to do with fans and in general, maybe the younger generation, or even analysts like us. Everyone's looking for that new face. Everyone's looking for the new guy. I mean, they were so eager to give it to Anthony Edwards last year. And look, he had a heck of a postseason. It was a hell of a run, to go all the way to the Western Conference Finals the way he did, put the team on his back in a sense. But at the same time, it's like, man, how many years has Tatum been doing this? Okay, sure, he just got his first championship. But getting to the Eastern Conference Finals and getting to the finals in 2022, I feel like it sort of painted this picture where it was like, okay, this is a foregone conclusion. He's going to get that championship. The Celtics are, the most talented team in the NBA last year. Like, it should go to them. And they made it look easy in a sense, right? Well, they lose 3 games during the postseason last year, won the championship. But again, I feel like everyone is still trying to see, okay, now what? What's next? What's next for the NBA? But hold on a second. Like, Tatum's not done. The gold medal I thought was important for him and his legacy for sure. And also, I just think at the end of the day, despite the playing time and all that stuff, I just think at the end of the day, like, Tatum's continuing to check these boxes, and everyone's just kind of like, okay, yeah, well, that's what you're supposed to do. But it's like he still doesn't get that recognition in the sense of being one of the guys that could be the face of the NBA. Does he have to win another championship to really enter that? Maybe not enter that conversation, but at least make it look like, okay, he's running away with it. Probably, and I think that would help. But still, it still surprises me that, like, because he's done it so many times of getting to the Eastern Conference Finals, I feel like it's almost like people overlooked him instead of, if he just did it all in 1 year, or if he just did it back-to-back seasons. But of course, it's never like that. I mean, look at the greats. Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant. I mean, they took them 5, 6 seasons, to even get to that stage. And I just feel like where Tatum's at right now, he's still on track to be, one of the greatest NBA players ever, to be honest, man. Like, I don't see him as someone who's plateaued, or, all of a sudden he's going to go back to being, fighting for championship here and there. I just think a lot of the time people just got too comfortable, got too used to Celtics getting that far so many times and then finally getting over the hump last season.
Yeah, the thing that kind of confuses me and just throws me off is, there's the initial argument that, okay, can he really stand out when you're playing with all these other really great players? He did that. Check that box off. Then it's like, okay, he can put up numbers. We know he can do that, but can he win at the highest level? And then he does that. And then it's like, okay, well, is he viewed as one of the best in the game? And he's been first team all NBA for a number of years now. And it seems that the goalposts keep moving when it comes to JT. And you brought up the Olympics, which I think is interesting. We're not going to go through the whole sordid tale again, but what I wanted to ask you about that was, how much of a factor do you think that, and the fact that he plays with this guy named Jaylen Brown, who is a very good player in his own right, to the point where Jaylen and not Jayson was NBA Finals and Eastern Conference Final MVP. How much do you think those two factors kind of weigh into, Tatum maybe not getting the kind of what I call league love? Because I think fans, I think for the most part, they like him, but he doesn't seem to be that guy that the league is putting front and center the way they were doing Anthony Edwards, the way that they have done, guys who are putting up comparable numbers, but for whatever reason, Tatum doesn't seem to get that league love the way some of those other guys do.
I mean, maybe a little bit hurts them in the sense of, you got a guy who's just as good or just right there with Tatum in a sense. So some people would argue that. And look, I just think a lot of it had to do with what Tatum did, what was best for the team in the finals, right? Like, if he really wanted to, he could have been like, hey, give me the rock. I'm going to go drop 34, 35 or whatever. But he knew that wasn't best for the team. And the way the defense was covering him and all that stuff, like, he knew, okay, I got to get everyone else going. I got to get other guys going. And, of course, Jaylen Brown was the main beneficiary of that. And he succeeded on both ends, right? I mean, not to knock Jaylen, not to say that, like, Tatum gave him that spot. I just think it does hurt him in the sense. But also, you look at someone who has been the face of the NBA and won a few championships, and Steph Curry, and he didn't win the Finals MVP. Like, 1 year it was Draymond, other years it was Kevin Durant, but he still sort of got that recognition. Is Tatum the most flashiest guy? Is he the one pulling up and near the logo and dropping, shooting these crazy threes? No. So, I guess that's only a special, what do you call it? That's unique to Stephen Curry. But I just think that when you see someone like this who continues to be, the top guy on this team, getting it done on both ends of the floor, I think it really does just boil down to how many championships you're going to get. You get the second one, okay, maybe the conversation shifts a little bit. He's getting louder about it. It didn't come out in a good way against that Cavs, Friday night. But I love that. I love to see that side of him. And I love to read these quotes where he's like, man, I'm overlooked in this league, and I tend to agree with that for sure.
Yeah, and I think, what we're starting to see a little bit of how it's not so much how you perform, it's the way in which you go about performing that seems to be driving a lot of the discourse. Because, I mean, Anthony Edwards is a hell of a player. Let's not get it twisted. Ant-Man can go, but Ant-Man got a lot to learn. Ant-Man got to learn how to
but there's the edge to him,
down.
though, right, Sherrod? There's like an edge to him, and I think that's what people gravitate towards. Whereas, Tatum is sort of that quiet leader, but doesn't mean that he's a inferior leader. I just think it's just his own style, and like he's told us so many times, the last couple of seasons, especially, he's like I'm not gonna be that guy. I'm not gonna get in people's faces. I'm not gonna get all rah. But he's starting to get that chip on his shoulder. Like, that chip's getting bigger, I should say. And I like to see that side of him in a sense of, being vocal, not just vocal, but, being demonstrative and showing that attitude, showing that flex, like Celtics fans love that. And I think that that helps. That helps for sure. Just kind of put on that edge. But again, it's organic. It's not something that it's not a front or a facade he's forcing out there.
No, I mean, I think he fully understands that, this league is about more than just winning games and putting up numbers. There's a certain swag. There's a certain swagger that you got to have when you out there and you play it. And we saw that in that Cleveland game early on. Obviously, they didn't get it done when it mattered most. But the fact is, I think Tatum recognizes that a little bit. But the other thing too that you have to recognize if you are a Boston Celtics fan, or you frankly you're someone who's following that chase to the championship, regardless of what city you're in, is that the Celtics, one of their biggest issues right now, if you had to pinpoint one, I think is health. We've seen Drew Holiday in and out of the lineup. We've seen Porzingis in and out of the lineup. We've seen Al Horford on the load management. He if there was ever such a thing as like the load management alumni association for cats who've been in it for a long ass time, Al Horford, he just might be president. Him and Kawhi. Actually, no, Kawhi Leonard. Will be program. Yeah. Kawhi Leonard will be president. Al might be like secretary or VP. But how much of a concern, though, Josue, are you about the Celtics and their chances to go deep in the playoffs if they're not 100% healthy? Because the way this season has played out, I don't think any of us will be shocked if they have to play multiple games without one of their starters.
Yeah, it's a little concerned, especially in a best of 7 against the Cavs. And look, that's not to say that I think the Cavs, giving them the benefit of the doubt in that series if it were to happen tomorrow, start tomorrow. But I just think Kristaps Porzingis is a big part of this equation. I mean, they're a different team when he's on the floor, obviously, but I think especially when they match up against the Cavs, he's a problem. He's someone that they just struggle against, just a sense of his presence and what it means to the offense and how it gets other guys going, whether it's Derek White, Drew Holiday, I mean, you name it. And then someone like Drew as well. You're going to need that. You need that defensive stopper for sure in the backcourt. And he proved that in a big way last year, especially in the Indiana Pacers series. So I just think I'm concerned in the sense of if those two aren't close to 100% or something's going on with them in the series against the Cavs, that really increases the Cleveland's chances of really, essentially surprising everyone, which is crazy to say because they've been the number one team all year long. But it would be a surprise to see these guys knock off the champions in the postseason. But that's the only team, though, Sherrod. I mean, honestly, I think whether it's the Knicks, even the Bucks, I'm not saying it's going to be a sweep or a landslide victory or Celtics in 5, but I'm not concerned in the sense that any other of those teams can knock off the Celtics in the series, including the Magic too. Man, I know they're coming up. Very talented team, but I still like the Celtics' chances because of their the rest of the guys, the depth throughout the starting 5. But man, Porzingis and Drew, yeah, man, those two are very important in a best of 7 series against the Cavs for sure, man. Cavs got the depth, man, and I think they did get better at the trade deadline by getting someone like Hunter to come off the bench.
Yeah, Hunter, that was a huge get for them. It definitely makes them a deeper team. Gives them somebody that has the ability to, I wouldn't say neutralize, but certainly cut into that gap that exists between Jaylen Brown and whoever's matched up with him, Jayson Tatum and whoever's matched up with them. Hunter gives them that X factor for sure. The other thing too about this Celtics team, health is obviously a big concern, but how can I put this? I'm feeling as though that if they're not careful, they're going to slip up and give somebody confidence who isn't all that good. I agree with you that the only team that I look at right now, and if I'm Boston, I'm thinking that's going to be a series that we're going to have to be pretty close to our top game to get through. It's Cleveland. Right. I think the Celtics have given themselves a lot of wiggle room against damn near every other team in the Eastern Conference. And those teams have not made the adjustments. They have not made the growth, the improvement to close that gap. I mean, New York has been, to me, a colossal disappointment this year. And to me, the way that they went about putting their team together is like, okay, this is like conference finals or bust. I don't even know if they're getting out of the first round. I don't feel great about them getting out, especially if they have to play, a team like Orlando, who, again, they can't score to save their lives, but damn, they can defend. And frankly, defense, if you're going to be strong on one side of the ball in the playoffs, you want to be strong defensively. Because anyone can get hot making shots, but not every. You're much more likely to get hot making shots than you are stopping them. And if you already got the blueprint to defend at a high level, you could be a problem. But the thing I wanted to ask you about is with the Celtics and potential health issues, concerns they may have. Is there a player that you think has to really step their game up come postseason, who's not one of the main guys. Like Tatum and Brown is a given, but someone besides like their core guys, like who's someone on the fringe that you see maybe needing to step up when we get to the playoffs?
Man, I'm looking at the bench, Ron. I mean, honestly, we know what Pritchard can do, but we also know what it looks like when he's not on, and it's gets very thin on that Celtics bench. So I mean, like, not to single one guy out, but maybe someone like Hauser. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not just calling like an X factor, but I just feel like they need just a constant threat off the bench, and Pritchard can be that guy for sure. But on nights where he's not on, I think they look very vulnerable, to be honest, man. And I just wonder what that's going to look like in the postseason. When it's going to be nights where I feel like they're going to get like 8, 9, 10 points off the bench, and like a lot of times that's when the starters have to really carry that offensive production, and they're able to do it. But when it becomes too repetitive, you're playing a team in a series, coaches start to figure things out, or you start throwing different things at the Celtics. You wonder what that's going to look like if you don't have that constant production off the bench. So I mean, I guess that'll be it, honestly. I mean, again, not a single Hauser, but maybe a guy like Hauser or someone else not named Pritchard coming off that bench and being someone that Joe Mazzulla can rely on, man. If playoff Al shows up, that'll be big as well. Look, I know it's hard for someone like Al to kind of string together, high production type of games when you're often resting, and I think that's the right thing to do with Al, to be honest, man. Like, I think you need him to be who he is in the postseason. And he does step his game up in the playoffs for sure. So I'm looking for that as well, especially this year, But yeah, I mean, look, this is the first time in how long? Been 6 years or so that he's shooting below 40% from three, But again, not getting that rhythm all the time and sitting out a lot. It's not easy, but you look for him to flip that switch in the postseason, and he's done it before. He did it last year, did it the year before that, especially. So I'm expecting to see the same thing from the Celtics for sure. Or I mean, from Al, I should say.
Yeah, I think it's difficult when you have guys that you agree are important parts of what your team does in terms of wins and losses, but you kind of put them in, take them out, put them in, take them out. I mean, and expect them to be able to produce at a high level. I mean, these players, these aren't ramen noodles that you could just pop in the oven and microwave and hit a couple buttons and get something, that's going to be the same thing over and over and over again.
Get the expected result.
Right. It doesn't work that way. But I will say this though, the one guy that I'm probably most curious about come playoff time, who I do think, and again, I think is going to win the Celtics a game. And by that, I simply mean they're going to make a difference in a game where the Celtics are damn near dead on arrival, are going to lose. And this one guy I think is going to step up and help them win one playoff game. And that's Torrey Craig, the new guy. Yeah. And the reason I say him is because he's the one guy that when you look at the things that he does, there really isn't a player that does those things. I mean, he's a wing, but he's a big wing. He's a guy that can get. He gets. I think he's a guy that can get you a lot of those cheap garbage baskets where there's a loose ball, it's bouncing around, and he just happens to be in the right place, right time, layup. Or there's a breakdown defensively, and he's wide open, knocks down an open shot. I think he can be a guy like that. But, again, the Celtics, they're going to need all hands on deck to win this second championship in a row, because anyone that you talk to who has ever won a championship, they will tell you the year after winning a championship was the most difficult season of their career up to that point, because you're literally getting playoff opponent XYZ damn near every night you play, because they know what it looks like when they beat you. I mean, it's like, it's like playing against, the best player in your neighborhood. If you get them on a night where they like tripping and they slipping and they're not playing that best game, you are not going to point out that they're not playing the best game. You're going to point out the fact that you beat them 11-9.
Right.
That's where your mindset's at. Before we go any further, Joseph, I want to make sure we give a quick shout out to our good friends at Prize Picks, which is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports. And again, it's the best place to win cash while watching your favorite players, the Jayson Tatums of the world, if you will. Prize Picks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to Big payouts like Taco Tuesday. You got to love Taco Tuesday, right? Each Tuesday, discounts, select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. And PrizePicks is also invested in the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't quite perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. And how do you get in? It's real simple. You download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download the app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. And speaking of running their game, you touched on a little bit earlier, Josue, about Cleveland. Are they the team to beat? I mean, they got the best record in the East, in the league. We know that, but do you see them as a team to beat in the East?
I do, Sherrod. Are they championship, favorites or whatever? I still give it to the Celtics, but you have to at least have them in the conversation for sure with their depth throughout the starting five, the depth coming off the bench. Ty Jerome. I mean, we talked about Hunter as well. I mean, Merle. I mean, look, they got a little bit of everything if you think about it in terms of shooting. They defend, their bigs can shoot, or Evan Mobley. Man, what a performance he had the other night against the Celtics. The Donovan Mitchell is your all-star, your go-to, someone who closed things out in the fourth quarter. Yeah, man. I mean, they're here. They're gonna be around for a while, man. They're gonna be around. They're here to stay with all these guys getting their contracts and buying into their brand new coach, man. Kenny Atkinson has done a really good job this year.
Yeah, they've been really, really good. And again, the gap between them, Boston, and the rest of the East just seems to get wider and wider. The way this is playing out, no one will be surprised if Cleveland and Boston have a very, very, very quick trip to see each other in the conference finals, where they win their first couple rounds by like in 5 games or a sweep. Would not be surprising. Now, shifting out to your hood, the Western Conference, hood.
Yeah.
OKC is too. Yeah, OKC, your Thunder, they're still riding high, doing lots of great things. Shea, is still looking like MVP Shea. Even when he doesn't put.
Is he? I mean, he is, but I don't know, man. People trying to put Jokic into this conversation. I mean, it's been a conversation all year, but I thought SGA ran away with it. But man, look at the Nuggets coming up with Jokic, and of course, people want to see if he can keep the streak going, man. But we'll see.
What's your take on that, though? Because I mean, you see that firsthand. I mean, you know what he can do. We've seen what he can do. But your point, you got what's happening in Denver, and we'll talk about the Lakers and how they're kind of making things interesting all of a sudden. The Memphis Grizzlies, they're back to those grinding ways that made them one of the top teams out west. Is also, how have things changed for the Thunder, like the last few weeks? Because it really does seem that there was a point where they just seem to be kind of running away from everyone in the West. Yeah. And now it seems like, they're not necessarily looking over their shoulders, but if they're looking at rearview mirror, they're going to see that Jokic and his crew are coming. LeBron and his crew are coming. Ja Morant, he's doing what Ja Morant can do. So how have things changed like the last, I'd say, month or so for them, as far as like how they're handling this increased teams closing in on them in their top spot?
I mean, for them, it's been okay. I mean, look, at the end of the day, they just look at what's in front of them. And I used to think that was a big cliche, but they really do, man. Like Jalen Williams even revealed that like he doesn't even know who they're playing the following week. Like he literally just focuses on the opponent coming up, and that's what they do. And I think a lot of that has to do with what happened last year. I think a lot of the times when they look back on that, they're like, man, we sort of thought, or they were looking ahead so far that, we can go to Western Conference Finals. We're number one team. Our coach is the coach of the year. And then they lost in the second round. So I just think because of that, it's sort of taught them to just, work with what's in front of you. But from the NBA landscape, man, if I'm Thunder, I'm looking at the rear view, I see a group of OGs coming back to try to take the spot, and what I mean by that is obviously Jokic, who's won a championship with the Nuggets not too long ago. I mean, the Golden State Warriors, it feels like it was forever ago, but it was only 3 years ago when they beat the Celtics in 2022, and here they come, I mean, look, you also got the team in the Lakers, man, and people kind of thought like, okay, well, yeah, that's a no-brainer. Obviously, you trade for Luka, you got someone for the future. No, they're looking at things right now, and I think they're a legitimate threat right now for sure. I mean, look, this is what's so exciting about the NBA. A trade like that can happen, and all of a sudden, this team is a championship contender, and I think they are. You can say the same thing about the Warriors with how they, traded for Jimmy Butler. So it's going to be interesting to see how this team responds. I mean, you're going to have to go through one of these teams at least to get to the NBA Finals if you're the Oklahoma City Thunder. But I don't think they're really they're not dealing with it quite yet, Sherrod. I mean, they're just looking at, again, what's in front of them, the humongous gap that they have at the top of the Western Conference. And, the Denver Nuggets are right there. But let's pump the brakes a little bit with the MVP talk, man, because I think what differentiates SGA season from what we're seeing from Jokic and the Nuggets now is that SGA was sitting on top for all season. Like he's been here, Yeah, the Nuggets had this push over the past couple of weeks, especially that's started off before the All-Star break, but they were, I mean, not to say that they came from the bottom, but they were sitting in fourth, fifth, for quite some time, and they sort of now made this leap. The Grizzlies were there at the second seed, the Rockets were there at one point at the second seed. It's been a revolving door that's at that spot, whereas the Oklahoma City Thunder and SGA having everything to do with that has been sitting comfortable at the top of the Western Conference, man, with only 10 losses going into the All-Star break. SGA leading the league in scoring, getting it done on both ends of the floor as well, averaging 2 steals a night, and just doing it at such a high level that a lot of times, he doesn't even play in the fourth quarter, and he's got 40-plus points. I mean, he's done it so many times, and he could have easily scored over 50 points more than a few times this season if that was the case. Now, if it was a close game, but of course he did it already, including his career high 54 points. So look, in terms of the MVP conversation, man, I just really think it belongs to SGA because of everything I just said. Because the team has dealt with so many injuries, but it hasn't affected their top spot. They've just been sitting comfortable at number one. But it's all about the playoffs, man. And I can't wait to see how everything unfolds because the West is a coin toss, man. Like, look, I love the Thunder. Like, I think they're the best team in the sense of, top to bottom depth, the defense, historically great defense, one of the best defenses I've seen ever, to be honest with you, Sherrod. But you know what the playoffs about, man. When the lights are at its brightest, the stars come out, guys who are comfortable, guys who have been there before, they can take your spot, So I'm looking at the Lakers, I'm looking at the Warriors, and you got to throw the Nuggets in that conversation as well. So it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be pretty for the Oklahoma City Thunder if they're able to finally get over the hump and at least get to the Western Conference Finals. I'm hoping that's the bare minimum in the sense of how far this team can go, but we'll see who's waiting for them at that spot.
Yeah, and one of the keys to them getting there is Chet, who, when you talk about injuries that they've been able to overcome, they play a pretty sizable portion of the season without him. And then they get him back, and they're feeling great. And now it's like, oh, damn, he's not around again. How much of a sense of urgency does this Thunder team have, knowing that they've got a lot of young players, but do they understand that you can't just keep you're not going to keep getting opportunity after opportunity to go deep into the playoffs? At some point, it's just not going to happen. Where's the sense of urgency with this team? Because the talent is there. I'm not convinced the sense of urgency is, though.
I mean, the sense of urgency is there, but I just think it's hard to sort of, like you said, man, like getting him back into the lineup wasn't a problem. Like he's been checking all the boxes in the sense of the passing the eye test and no minutes restriction. He was being a bit of a distributor, which is tearing teams up. But of course, right when Mark Daigneault is sort of finding that stride, he goes down again, man. And it's just it's like a shadow that's casted over this team, man, when it comes to Chet, because he's such a difference maker out there when he's on. And you feel like he was just really starting to find his stride in that starting lineup. You're starting to see all the different things and how complicated the offense can be when he's out there. And then he sprains his ankle, Friday night. So, like, man, it's tough because this guy's going to step up, but just not quite as dominant when he's not out there. Still a really good team. Isaiah Hartenstein has a lot to do with that. But when you got both of them out there, when the double bigs are out there, man, like they were really figuring things out, man. And again, both of them are very underrated passers. But Chet Holmgren was really starting to find his stride. So, I mean, hopefully it's just a minor setback. And, I just can't stop thinking about what he told us last week, though. It's just kind of crazy. It's kind of a bit of a foreshadow. But he was like, man, I don't think I'll be 100% this year. Like, he was really honest with us, Chet, right? He's like, but I'm doing my absolute best, every single night, working hard during the All-Star break. He didn't want to stop, so he was constantly working out. And you saw that, in the results. He played his best game, honestly, this season after the All-Star break. And then for this to happen, man, against the Hawks, it's tough, man. It really is, because, again, this isn't the team at its full potential without him. Sure, they can win games, but you really wonder what that's going to look like when you're playing the same team in a best-of-7 series.
Yeah, I mean, it seems that the one thing that we often discard when it comes to winning is just flow, chemistry, teamwork. And it's not that guys don't like playing with each other, but there's just a certain flow that you establish with guys that you're playing with, that you play with a lot. You kind of know where they are without necessarily having to look for them to be there. They just get to where they're supposed to be when they're supposed to be there. And that's one of those things, just when we've seen it happen. It tends to come together a little bit quicker for OGs when you have veteran players coming together. I mean, you think back to the other big three in Boston when you had Ray and KG come join forces with Paul. What happens in the first year? They win a chip. And you look at this Dallas Maverick, or excuse me, not Dallas. You look at the Lakers with now former Dallas Maverick Luka Doncic, and the way that him and LeBron,
can't believe that, by the way, man, it's crazy. But yeah, go ahead.
The way him and LeBron have literally hit the ground running. Watching them play, you would think them dudes have played together for like their entire careers. Just the way they seem to play so well off each other. Have they been better than you thought, or what you thought, or a disappointment?
They've been better. I mean, putting the ball in Luka's hands, and he's not even balling like that. Right? That's the scary part. I mean, he's doing well, but for Luka, it's like, what else you got on the offensive end? Well, he's gonna figure it out. I don't think anyone is worried about that. So once that happens, you're like, man, like, how far can this team go? And I just think, a lot of what you just said, actually, Sherrod, I was just thinking that as well, in the sense of like the respect this guy has for LeBron James. And then with all the chatter about, you can't keep yourself in shape, and obviously your former franchise didn't believe in you, and that you could bring them to the promised land, and all of that is just gonna materialize into an incredible run. To be honest with you, man, I really do think it's gonna happen. But again, the respect he has for LeBron and what that means for this franchise. I mean, that was a big part of why the Celtics were so successful so early. Not only were these guys veterans that have been doing their thing for so long, in their own individual rights, between Ray Allen, Paul Pierce, and Kevin Garnett, but they all respected each other so much. They had seen each other how many times at All-Star Weekend. They've seen what had happened, with their respective franchises. And they all want the same thing, a championship. They didn't have that. So to have someone like Luka join forces with someone who has been there, who has his respect, who Luka essentially looked up to. I mean, there's that age gap too as well. I mean, that's a significant part of this, of what's going on. Luka's parents are coming to these games. He's a Laker. The legacy, the storied franchise that they are, all that just makes for this perfect concoction of a heck of an unexpected run to the finals, let's say, right? And I really wouldn't be surprised. So I can't wait to see what happens. But yeah, man, they've certainly, I knew this would happen maybe next year or so, but they've hit the ground running. And again, Luka's he's not even at 100 right now, man. He's at like 75. So imagine what this team's going to look like once he reaches that level. I can't wait to see.
Yeah, in the games I've seen him play, Luka has played better defense in like the time he's been in LA than he played the entire time in Dallas. I mean, watching him defend now, it's like, wait a minute, who the hell is rocking that double 7 jersey? Because that ain't Luka. That dude on the court is moving his feet. That dude on the court is trying to draw charges. And I'm like, what do they do with Luka? He's looked like Luka. He's shooting like Luka. But that ain't Luka. Yeah. And to me, it's an example of what happens when you are in the right situation with the right pieces around you. I don't think that if you take LeBron James out of the equation, I don't think the pieces that Luka is playing with now are better than the ones that he had in Dallas. And obviously LeBron is a difference maker, but that's not I don't believe that's the root to why Luka's playing better. I think it has more to do with the fact that Luka is at crossroads where you need to decide, am I going to be one of the greatest to play this game ever? Or am I just going to be a really good player who can get by and be out of shape and still get you 25, 6, and 6? Right. AKA what I did in Dallas. Because Luka can literally be out of shape for the rest of his NBA career, which will be shortened because of that. But he'll still be able to guy that will put up major numbers because he's that talented. But if he wants to win the championship, what he's doing now with his body, what he's doing now with the way he looks at defense and plays defense and approaches that side of the ball, they're going to be hell for y'all OKC Thunders because there's no amount – all those draft picks that Sam Presti has been stockpiling and all this other stuff, that ain't going to do me much good when double seven rolling down the court, knocking down threes, posting you up, breaking you off the dribble, ridiculous court vision. And now it looks like he's trying to defend. They are going to be a problem for many, many, many folks.
And they can't stand Luka out here too, man. I don't know if I told you the last time I was on, but like it's so reminiscent of Celtics fans' feelings towards LeBron James during the Miami years. You know, like they just can't stand him. Like he's villain number one. He's the crybaby. He's this and that. You know, mind you, SGA is getting these chants all over the NBA of when he gets to the free throw line because he gets there so often. But they ignore all that. They're like, no, man. Luka's the one. I mean, at the end of the day, SGA is never really one of those to complain. He kind of just gets to the free throw line. But it really is become a trend of opposing crowds, just hating when he's at the free throw line because they're like, man, this guy gets there so easily. But yeah, man, like even seeing Luka in purple and gold is still weird to me, but it works. They're figuring this thing out, and man, what a gift if you think about it. I mean, yeah, the Lakers had to say yes to that trade, but who's saying no? Who's saying no to that trade, especially the way it looks like right now? No one.
Maybe Anthony Davis' daddy. Maybe he say no.
Yeah,
maybe
with the loyalty over there, but
yeah. I mean, it's amazing how that deal is just the rippling effect of that deal is going to be felt for decades.
Right.
And that's to me, it's one of the cool things about the NBA right now. I mean, you got a guy like Jayson Tatum who in most generations will be a shoo-in to be like top 3 MVP candidate without any ifs, ands, or buts about it. And yet it's debatable that he's there. You've got the Lakers making absolutely monumental, historic-esque move. You got the Cleveland Cadavers, who now are the Cavaliers, because they are far from dead on arrival, playing great basketball. There's a lot of intrigue, a lot of interest in the NBA. And low key, not even going to try to front and pretend I didn't peep this. When the Luka stuff was going down, that was Super Bowl weekend, and yet we weren't really talking about the Super Bowl. We were talking about the NBA. True. So I will say this, even though I don't think it was intentional, shout out to the NBA for basically doing to the NFL what the NFL says to do to everyone else. Still your show.
Still the spotlight. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Normally when they should be like that, that supporting actor or actress on the side, NBA was like, nah, we taking center stage, y'all. This is going to be about us this weekend. So I did enjoy that. I'm not going to lie.
I mean, they had games on Christmas. That was crazy, man. But man, that's the NBA's day. Come on, stop it.
Yeah.
Stop it. Like,
yeah. So the Luka thing, that was like the ultimate NBA clapback to the NFL, doing what they do. So I respect Luka and his camp and the Lakers for, I don't think it was intentional, but the fact that it worked out the way it did to timing wise, beautiful. Thing of genius. Enjoyed the heck out of that.
Lakers always gonna have somebody, man. Man, like call me the guy who grew up in Boston watching it all play out between Shaq and Kobe. Eventually they get LeBron, right when Kobe retires. I mean, it's just like they got their superstar, their face of the franchise set for another 15 years or whatever the case may be. But seeing what LeBron and Luka can do before that happens, man, that's must-see TV, man. So yeah, if you're the NBA, you're like, sign me up for that. Obviously, the Celtics are still in the picture. Celtics still my favorite to win it all, to go back to back. The first team to do it is the Warriors. But imagine if we get another Celtics-Lakers finals, man. That would be crazy.
I'm all for that.
I can't wait. I'm all for it too, man. I remember saying like 3 or 4 years ago, I'm like, man, at some point, Luka versus Tatum is going to be a rivalry. But I never, ever expected that Luka to be in a Lakers uniform. It happened last year when they met in the finals, and I'm like, okay, this is going to be the beginning of another, rivalry or whatever. The Dallas can get back there. Even Tatum said it. What was it on? I think it was Jimmy Fallon. He was like, man, I predict what do you call it? For us to meet again, the Mavericks and the Celtics. Not going to happen this year, if you ask me. But if we get a Celtics-Lakers with Luka, LeBron on one side, Tatum and Jaylen Brown on the other, man, that would be incredible. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm not throwing away, the Thunder's chances again from top to bottom. They are the team that should be there when the NBA finals start, but you just never know when it comes down to the playoffs and when you're going up against a heart of a champion, man. Someone like LeBron, it's going to be crazy.
Yeah, that's definitely something I'm looking forward to seeing how this all plays out. It'd be good to see, and this was good catching up with you, Josue.
Yeah, same, Sherrod, man.
This was good. It's been a minute, and I know it's been a minute because one of us needs a haircut, and it's not Sherrod, but that's another story. That's another story. We'll talk about that another day on another podcast. I
need to find a barber out here, Sherrod, man. I went to one, and I'm not going back, so I need to. Yeah, man, we got to figure that out soon.
My goodness. But man, it's always good to see you, Josue. Even with all that damn hair, it's still good to see you, brother. Still good to see you.
Appreciate you, man. Yeah, Josue, the OKC look, man. I'm all over the place this year, man.
Absolutely. You. Josue Pavon, everyone. And that's it for this episode of the Big Three NBA podcast. Sherrod Blakely for Josue Pavon. We are out. People have a wonderful week. Take care.